Hey guys, tonight we're stepping back into a simpler, rougher, but oddly heartwarming time, where heat came from firewood storytelling was the Netflix of the Middle Ages, and your dinner might include beans from last week if you were lucky. You probably won't survive this if you're allergic to goats, or cold, or beans reused one too many times. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Let me know where you're tuning in from and what time it is in your corner of the world. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Night descends without fuss. No royal trumpet, no poetic hush, just a long, slow fade into dark, and the knowledge that tomorrow will look very much like today. You lay your damp boots by the hearth, careful not to get too close. Melted snow in the toes is a betrayal you don't forget twice. Dinner is a quiet affair. Porridge that's more memory than meal, thickened with imagination, and perhaps a spoonful of yesterday's beans. The goat tries to climb onto someone's lap. She's shooed away. You suspect she's plotting revenge. Outside, the wind picks up a cold, whistling ribbon that slides through every wooden seam in the cottage. You stuff cloth into the window cracks. It won't stop the chill, but it will muffle the wind enough that you can pretend it isn't there. This is when the storytelling starts. By candlelight, your father clears his throat, an official act, the prelude to magic. He doesn't read from anything. No one reads, really. The stories live in him, like old bones rattling around until he sets them free. Tonight, it's the tale of a prince who tricked death. Or maybe it's the one about the talking fish. Either way, it's a tale of someone cleverer than their circumstances, which coincidentally is also your family motto. The children listen wide-eyed. Even the adults lean in slightly, pretending they're only doing so to hear better. You watch your mother's face in the flickering candlelight, how the years fall away as she mouths the ending along with him, just slightly ahead of his voice. Historians note that winter evenings in medieval Europe were often rich in oral storytelling, with tales passed down like heirlooms. These weren't merely for entertainment. They were cultural memory-soft resistance and a way to make sense of suffering. You scratch the goat behind the ears. She's forgiven you after all. The story ends. Everyone sits a moment longer basking in the invisible warmth of shared wonder. Then the shuffling begins. Blankets unrolled, candles, snuffed children tucked into scratchy linen beds. You curl into your own pile of straw and rough-woven wool muscles, aching in a good way. You stare up at the rafters. The roof doesn't leak yet. That's tomorrow's worry. Beside you, your brother has started snoring. Across the room, someone whispers a final line from the story, just to themselves. You smile into the darkness. You shift under your blanket, the scratchy wool prickling your skin through the linen shirt you've been wearing for 3 days straight. It smells like smoke sweat, and something vaguely herbal, maybe the dried rosemary someone hung over the doorway 2 weeks ago. There's no point changing clothes. It's too cold to peel anything off. The goat settles herself by the hearth, curling her legs beneath her and chewing thoughtfully. Her eyes catch the last of the candlelight, and for a moment you imagine she's a creature out of the old tales, half spirit, half judge, wholly unimpressed. Your father coughs into his sleeve, the sound sharp in the hush. He doesn't speak much outside of stories. During the day, he mostly gestures, points, grunts. But at night, he becomes a bard in burlap, spinning yarns that wrap the family in warmth no blanket can match. Tonight, he adds a new ending to the fish story. Something about a royal cook and an enchanted ladle. It makes no sense and earns a few giggles, but that's the point. It's not the tale, it's the telling. You watch your sister twirl a lock of hair between her fingers, eyes glassy with sleep. The story slides over her like snowfall. You envy that softness. Your own thoughts keep tugging at chores wood to split the roof to patch the missing chicken who might have simply joined a smarter family. A faint pop from the fire draws your gaze. One log collapses into glowing rubble, sending up a flurry of sparks like tiny shooting stars. You make a silent wish on them, nothing dramatic. Just for the straw to stop poking your ankle. Maybe for the soup tomorrow to have salt. Historians note that even the poorest households maintained ritual rhythms, story supper silence, as a way to mark time and protect sanity. Without clocks or calendars, these habits became anchors in the drifting sea of winter. Across the room, your mother begins to hum. Not a tune you recognize, just a lull of vowels and breath. It's not for you, really. It's for herself. A song against the cold. You close your eyes not to sleep, but to pretend you're somewhere warmer. Maybe the coast where fishermen brag about storms and eat things pulled from the sea that don't taste like pond. You've never seen the sea, but you dream of it often vast, endless, and loud enough to drown out everything. The goat sneezes. The moment passes. You roll to your side. The straw pokes your hip now, but it's a better pain than frostbite. You remember the time 2 winters ago when your cousin's toes turned black. He didn't lose them, but he walks funny now. He blames the straw mattress. You all know it was the hole in his boot. Your mother snuffs the candle. Total darkness swallows the room. A baby whimpers. Someone farts. These are the lullabies of your life. Outside, the wind argues with the shutters. Inside, you count breaths. Yours, the goats, the fires. This is what surviving looks like, barely but beautifully. The morning doesn't so much arrive as it seeps in slow, reluctant, and vaguely resentful of its own existence. No bold sunrise, no cheerful bird chorus. Just a sullen gray light oozing through the cracks between shutter slats, softly outlining the dust in the air like it too is trying to go unnoticed. Someone coughs. Then another. There's a creak of floorboards overhead, followed by the distant thud of something frozen being dumped outside. And just like that, the cottage exhales itself awake. You're still curled beneath the wool blanket, warm only in theory. It's the kind of warmth that belongs to the air trapped under your knees and elbows, and only there. Every other square inch of your body has been quietly repossessed by winter. You don't jump out of bed. No one does in winter. That would be suicidal. You shift like an ancient hinge, limbs creaking, groaning inwardly, brushing bits of hay from your hair, and trying not to make eye contact with your own breath. There's no fire. Not yet. The hearth is a sleeping dragon, gray cold and slightly ashamed. You pad over in mismatched socks, bend stiffly, and start poking yesterday's ashes like a disgruntled alchemist. Your mother mutters something unintelligible in a dialect older than dirt as she chips away at the hardened remains of porridge in the pot, now more sculpture than food. Breakfast might be possible, or it might just be ceremonial. You find yourself chewing yesterday's crust with all the enthusiasm of a medieval goat. But food isn't about pleasure now. It's about survival, and slightly about jaw exercise. Then comes the verdict today. You're collecting more straw. Of course you are. It's always straw. There's never a day when they say, take the morning off and try self-expression. Just straw. Frozen, unyielding, belligerent straw. You wrap your cloak around your shoulders, indigo tattered, smelling faintly of onions, and head outside, dull iron blade in hand. The path is half frozen mud, half philosophical metaphor for futility. You trudge, muttering to yourself like a tiny, unappreciated monk with mild rage issues. The field greets you with silence and wind. The stalks are stiff, reluctant to bend, as if protesting your existence. You hack at them anyway. Not because you believe in it, but because this is what people do. This is how days begin. Not with purpose, but with obligation dressed up as tradition. Somewhere nearby, the goat bleats once, then stomps its foot in what you optimistically interpret as encouragement. You stomp yours, in return, part solidarity, part defiance, part an attempt to reintroduce blood flow to your toes. Historians still argue whether medieval peasant routines were purely about utility, or if they carried hidden layers of spiritual practice. Was collecting straw just collecting straw, or a form of ritualized devotion to the gods of warmth and livestock? Betting you don't know. You just know your fingers hurt, your nose feels like someone else's, and your breath keeps trying to freeze mid-air. It's less romantic than the manuscripts would have you believe. Eventually, with arms full of what passes for straw and dignity, you begin your trek back. A neighbor ambles past, wrapped head to foot like a walking haystack. You exchange nods the full extent of allowable morning conversation. Anything beyond that would constitute a social event. Back inside the fire has come to life, barely. Your mother has coaxed it back with blasphemies and fire tongs. The hearth is now glowing grudgingly. You dump the straw near it where it steams gently, the frost melting off in little huffs of surrender. You sit. You stretch your fingers toward the warmth. You blink the ice from your eyelashes and listen to the muted symphony of a cottage in winter, crackling flames, shifting blankets, the occasional goat-based disruption. This is what people remember, if they remember anything at all. Breakfast has transformed from existential despair to something bordering on edible. The porridge has been resuscitated with enough water to make it technically food. You eat slowly with reverence and caution, as though it might turn back into a rock mid-bite. Someone jokes that the goat knocked over the chamber pot again. No one laughs out loud. But someone snorts, and that's enough. In winter, a snort is a standing ovation. You look around at your family slouched, bundled, hunched around bowls like minor deities of survival. There's no glamour here, no grand gestures, just the subtle choreography of people quietly refusing to give up. Here's your quirky historical tidbit. In certain parts of medieval Europe, it was common to stuff straw mattresses with dried nettles or mint leaves, not for comfort, but to discourage fleas and spirits. Both apparently disliked good hygiene and herbal fragrance. You think about that as you shift your weight on your own prickly bedding and try not to wonder how many generations of itch have passed through it. The hours don't pass so much as drag their feet. Time here is elastic, measured in porridge levels, and the number of times someone says it's cold with slightly different inflection. You stare out the small slit of a window. Snow is flirting again, light flurries undecided. The sky is still the color of bad milk, but inside a small miracle is unfolding. The fire is holding. The goat has not destroyed anything new. The porridge has not boiled over into sentience. For a few quiet, golden minutes, everything functions, and this maybe more than anything is the essence of survival in a medieval winter. Not heroics, not adventure, just moments where nothing actively falls apart. You breathe, you stretch your toes, you wrap your hands around your bowl and sip the last bit of warmth. It tastes like oats and perseverance, and you think maybe today won't be so bad. By midday, the sky has brightened by half a tone, just enough to remind you that daylight technically exists, but not enough to suggest it cares. You step outside with the sort of determination that only comes from someone trying to retrieve a small, necessary miracle hot water. The bucket clanks at your side, empty, resentful, dented from decades of service. You promise it nothing but a return trip. The snow underfoot has developed a personality. It crunches like brittle glass in some places, and slushes like regret in others. You've learned to walk with a sort of resigned shuffle, like a monk who forgot why he took the vow. The well isn't far, but in the cold, it feels like a minor pilgrimage. You pass the neighbor's goat, which eyes you with ancient suspicion, and a child wrapped in enough cloth to qualify as a mobile hay bale. At the well, the crank creaks like a chorus of arthritic knees. You lower the bucket slowly, listening for the faint splash below. The rope shivers in your grip. The water, when it comes, is a reluctant gift, icy, almost philosophical in its coldness. You wince as you hoist it up, muscles complaining the whole way. One day you'll be strong enough to do this without grunting, but that day is not today. Returning home, you nearly slip twice. Not quite falling is your winter sport now. The door greets you with a groan, the hearth with a hiss as you set the bucket beside it. The steam that rises is modest, but it feels like applause. Your mother nods approvingly. Your uncle grunts. Your youngest sibling offers you the coveted half-warm corner of the blanket. You accept with the solemnity of a knight receiving his sword. Then the chore you've been pretending not to remember: clothes washing. There's a wooden tub in the back, half filled with water from the last melt. It smells like effort. You roll up your sleeves, brace yourself, and dunk the first tunic. It hits the water with the weight of 1,000 regrets. Scrubbing is less a process and more a battle. The fabric resists. Your fingers freeze. A splash hits your chin, and you swear under your breath, quietly, respectfully, like a peasant trying not to offend the spirit of laundry. It's said, though, who says it is unclear that medieval soap was made from animal fat and ashes. You're not entirely convinced your soap isn't still made this way. It doesn't foam. It just asserts itself with a smell like roasted despair. You rub, you wring, you curse your ancestors in affectionate tones. Historians still argue whether communal washing practices were moments of shared burden or covert competition. Was it solidarity, or were people low-key flexing their washing techniques to impress potential spouses? You look down at your waterlogged sleeves and decide probably both. Outside, the wind has picked up. It rattles the shutters and howls with a kind of theatrical flair. You ignore it. Weather is like a sibling. It only wins if you react. Inside, someone stokes the fire. Someone else slices a turnip. The domestic rhythm resumes, flawed, but persistent. You lay the damp clothes near the hearth, careful not to scorch them again. Last week's scorched sock incident is still a sore subject. Literally. You settle onto the bench with a bowl of broth, thin, mysterious, but warm. The flavor suggests cabbage, onion, and maybe 1 or 2 confessions. You eat slowly, chew deliberately. You savor the warmth as if calories could be banked for later. Then comes a sound that strikes dread into your bones, the latch lifting. A visitor. No one visits in winter unless it's serious or unless they're lost. The door opens to reveal a man in russet robes, cheeks red, nose dripping slightly. The local tax collector. You can tell because he's not shivering. That's his superpower, impervious to human suffering. He nods, steps inside, and announces that he's here for the census. Wonderful. Nothing says cozy afternoon like state surveillance. He sits. You offer tea, which is actually hot water with a leaf in it. He accepts and begins asking questions. How many people in the household? Anyone born? Anyone dead? Any goats acquired or mysteriously disappeared? You answer dutifully while your uncle mutters curses in Latin. Probably. The census taker writes with a quill that squeaks like a nervous mouse. Here's your fact of the day. In some medieval regions, census records were kept on wooden tally sticks. Not because parchment was scarce, though it was, but because tally sticks could double as kindling if the bureaucracy ever went too far. Efficiency at its finest. The questioning ends. He nods. You nod. There's a pause that could either be politeness or constipation. Then he leaves. You bolt the door behind him like you're sealing away a ghost. The house exhales. By now, daylight is waning again. You light a candle, small, stubby, determined. Its glow softens the corners of the room, casting gentle shadows on faces that are finally blessedly still. You lie back, your muscles throbbing like ancient drums. Someone begins humming. The tune is familiar old, slightly off-key, but comforting. You hum along without realizing. The goat snores. The fire crackles. The wind outside shifts to a low moan, as if remembering something sad. You think about the census, about how someone somewhere now has your name on a stick, a scroll, or a record book. You wonder if they'll remember you for your goat count, or your porridge portions, or the time you nearly fell in the well and called it a religious experience. But the thoughts don't linger. Sleep begins to pull at you, soft and persuasive. The day is done. The chores are done. The taxes are done. You've survived another round of medieval Monday. And somehow that feels like victory. The next morning begins the same way all winter mornings do, like a slow negotiation between your body and the cold. You wake curled around yourself like a baked pretzel, gone stale, reluctant to unfold even a finger. The straw mattress creaks as you shift, and your breath hangs in the air like a spirit, visible and vaguely judgmental. The fire has gone out. Of course it has. Fires have no loyalty, only hunger. Someone will need to relight it, and judging by the silence, that someone is probably you. You rise, grumbling in your bones, and shuffle over in your patched wool socks, both more hole than sock, really. You poke the ashes with a stick. Still warm. A victory. You coax the embers, add a bit of dry kindling, and blow gently. Smoke snakes up, then a flicker. Then flame. You feel absurdly proud, like a caveman reinventing the wheel. Behind you, a chorus of sneezes erupts. Your sibling has emerged from the blanket pile, eyes puffy, nose red. You pass them a cloth that may once have been a handkerchief, but now functions more like a multi-purpose rag of eternal sadness. They mumble something that sounds like thanks, but could just as easily be plague. Breakfast, such as it is, consists of yesterday's bread heel, now hardened into a potential weapon. You dip it in the hot water to soften it, and pretend the steam counts as a garnish. Someone finds a bit of turnip from last night's stew. It's a tiny victory, like finding treasure in a sandbox. Outside, snow has started falling properly this time. Fat flakes drift like slow-motion feathers. The whole world seems quieter, as if even the birds have agreed to keep their opinions to themselves. You wrap yourself in every available layer, which makes you look like a walking laundry pile, and prepare to shovel the walkway. The shovel is older than most of your relatives, and makes a noise like a groan every time it touches the ground. You push snow aside in uneven heaps, forming what might generously be called a path. It feels more symbolic than functional. Still, there's something meditative about the repetition. Shovel, puff of breath, shuffle, shovel. You lose track of time, and maybe that's the point. One of your neighbors waves. You wave back, both of you resembling bundles of wool and regret. There's no need to speak, this weather speaks louder than words. Historians still argue whether medieval communities maintained shared snow-clearing duties or if it was left to individual households. Some manuscripts suggest entire villages worked together to keep paths clear to the church or communal oven. Others imply it was every peasant for themselves. The truth is probably that if you didn't shovel your bit, someone's grandmother would curse your goats. Back inside, the warmth hits you like a wall. Someone has boiled more water. You bask in the steam like a Roman emperor who's lowered his standards considerably. Your sibling is trying to repair their shoes using a needle, some twine, and what appears to be optimism. You help by holding the leather taut while they thread the twine, and neither of you speaks. Not because you're annoyed, but because in winter talking uses energy you'd rather spend blinking. Once the shoes are passably stitched, you both sit near the fire and listen to the house creak in the wind. The goat sneezes. You consider asking it to cover its mouth, but the joke feels too effortful. Instead, you rest your head against the wall and let your eyes drift shut. Then comes the knock. It's not loud, just a gentle tapping, like an idea trying to get your attention. You glance around. No one else moves, so again it's you. You open the door to find a traveler, a man in teal with frost on his eyebrows and a lute strapped to his back. He smiles like someone who's been told he's charming. You're not convinced. He explains he's a minstrel stranded by the snow and wonders if he might exchange a song for shelter. You consider. A song sounds like a fair price, and frankly, you're curious what a lute even sounds like when it hasn't frozen solid. You let him in. He settles near the fire, tunes his instrument with fingers stiff from the cold, and begins to play. The notes are imperfect, wobbly, raw, but warm, like soup made from old bones and better memories. The melody drifts through the room, pulling smiles from reluctant mouths. Even the goat looks impressed. He sings of summer markets, of bees drunk on lavender, of girls with ribbons and boys who can juggle 3 apples at once. His lyrics are filled with nostalgia for seasons that now feel like folklore. You close your eyes and imagine sunlight that doesn't bite fruit that grows on purpose, and days when your fingers aren't permanently wrinkled from cold water. The song ends. No one claps, not out of rudeness, but because the silence afterward feels sacred, like the pause between snowfall and settling. The minstrel accepts a bowl of broth and settles in. He offers to tell stories later. You nod. Maybe you'll even stay awake for them. Maybe. Outside, the snow thickens. Inside, the room feels more human than it did before. Music does that. It reminds you that survival isn't just about calories, it's about connection, too. You return to your spot by the fire, sip from your chipped cup, and wrap the blanket tighter. The day's not over, but for now it feels suspended, held in place by notes still echoing faintly in the air. And for a little while, you believe in warmth. By mid-afternoon, the snow has surrendered to a tired drizzle, the kind of sleet that isn't dramatic enough to admire or even curse, just persistent enough to soak into your cloak and dampen your soul. You're outside again, this time chopping wood, because apparently fire doesn't fuel itself. The axe is nearly as worn out as you, its handle splintered and held together by string prayer and something sticky no one's identified. You swing it with all the enthusiasm of a cat being bathed. The log splits after the 3rd try, sending wet chips into the air like confetti for a party you'd never attend. Inside the traveler, the minstrel from earlier has made himself useful. He's telling stories to the younger kids while pretending not to enjoy the attention. You peek in through the open door and catch a snippet, something about a princess who outwitted a dragon, using only breadcrumbs and sarcasm. The children are entranced mouths, slightly open eyes wide. You smile despite yourself. You haul in more wood trailing water like a defeated mop. The fire sputters as the logs settle in, then flares up with a satisfying crackle. You hold your hands over it, turning them slowly, trying to toast the chill out of your knuckles. The minstrel nods at you mid-sentence part, greeting part gratitude. Later you find yourself sitting near the window slit, staring out. Not because there's anything to see, but because it's nice to pretend. The sleet has smudged the landscape into a watercolor of grays and browns. You trace patterns in the condensation on the wood frame, little circles and spirals that disappear as fast as they appear. Behind you, the minstrel strums softly, no song, just a wandering melody like someone humming their thoughts. It's oddly comforting, like having a soundtrack for your fatigue. Someone suggests tea, which is generous considering you're out of actual tea. But a pot is boiled anyway, and a few herbs, possibly edible, possibly decorative, are added. The result is a hot, vaguely grassy liquid that warms your throat and confuses your taste buds. Still, no one complains. Historians still argue whether peasants in medieval Europe had regular access to herbs for tea-like brews. Some say wild foraging was common, especially among women and herbalists. Others argue such comforts were rare luxuries, more myth than reality. Your mouth suggests the latter, but your hands appreciate the steam. The fire pops, someone jumps, you all laugh. A real laugh, not the polite kind, not the forced chuckle, but a shared, hearty belly sound. Even the goat joins in, or at least sneezes in rhythm. The minstrel clears his throat. He says he'll sing again if you want. You nod. This time the song is slower, sadder. It's about someone who waited by a window too long and missed the person they were waiting for. The words are simple. The feeling isn't. As he sings, you look around the room. Your sibling has fallen asleep, one hand resting in a bowl of cooling soup. The older aunt is knitting something aggressively. The goat has claimed the warmest spot near the fire and dares anyone to argue. You're surrounded by quiet life, nothing flashy, nothing grand, just people surviving together. You realize something no one has mentioned tomorrow. It's not avoidance, it's ritual. Tomorrow isn't real until you get there. Plans are for warm months. Winter is about endurance. 1 hour, one chore, one log, one breath at a time. You stretch your legs. Your knees make a noise that could frighten birds. The minstrel finishes his song. This time there's applause. Even if it's just 3 slow claps and a snort, it counts. Then comes the idea. Your uncle, who hasn't spoken in hours, suggests a game. You all blink at him, surprised he's still awake. He proposes 2 truths and a lie, except medieval style 2 events and a myth. You're intrigued. The aunt goes first. Her events. The goat once ate a prayer book, and I danced at the harvest feast with the baker's son. Her myth, I've never cursed in church. You all gasp. Not because you believe her, but because pretending to believe is the game. Your turn. You say I saw the sunrise last week. No one believes you. I once outran a goose with a bell tied to its neck. Mixed reactions. And I enjoy shoveling snow. The room bursts into laughter. Even the fire seems to crackle in agreement. Games like these were the thread between long winter hours and longer winter silences. They stitched families together loop by loop, joke by joke. Historians still argue whether such informal rituals held communities stronger than formal religion. Some think the laughter did more than sermons. Others insist the church was the glue. Maybe it's both. Eventually, the game fizzles out. Someone yawns. Someone else stretches like a cat with arthritis. The minstrel puts away his lute. You pile on another log, watch the sparks race upward like fireflies trying to escape. The drizzle has stopped. Outside, the world glistens in wet darkness. Trees drip, roofs shine. The snow has surrendered, but the cold has not. You lie back, your head against the wall, a half smile tugging your lips. Tomorrow will be a new set of chores, of uncertainties, of quiet victories and small jokes. But for tonight, there was laughter. There was music. There was tea, sort of. And there was you still here. You wake up to coughing. Not yours, someone else's. the kind that scrapes the bottom of their lungs like they're trying to clear a chimney with nothing but willpower. It's still dark, though not as dark as before. That annoying twilight where you can't quite tell if it's morning or just the night reconsidering. You roll over joints stiff and blanket somehow colder than the air. Your breath fogs in front of you. Somewhere nearby, the fire has thinned to a hushed pile of embers. Someone's already up, fumbling with kindling. You sit up slow and creaky. Your hair points in 5 directions. Your knees complain. But you're alive, which feels mildly impressive. Breakfast, if you can call it that, is the end of yesterday's bread. It's gone from warm to weapon grade overnight. You chew it like a punishment. The minstrel says something about soaking it in goat milk to soften it. No one volunteers their milk. Especially not the goat. Instead, the aunt breaks off pieces and passes them around like communion. One child tries to barter their crust for a warmer spot near the fire. It doesn't work. Hierarchy in this house is determined strictly by how long your toes have been frozen. Outside, the sky is pale uncertain. Not sunrise, not full daylight. Just a suggestion of both. You gather your gear, a woven basket, a dull knife, a bit of twine, and prepare for your next task gathering firewood. Again. Historians still argue whether medieval peasant families had rotating chore schedules. Some claim responsibilities were shared and rotated to maintain fairness. Others believe roles were rigid, assigned by age, gender, or the random whims of grumpy elders. In your case, it seems based entirely on who stands up first. You trudge into the woods, each step a small betrayal of your comfort. The snow has hardened, crusting over the mud like brittle sugar on burnt custard. Trees stretch above you like old cathedral columns, bare and reverent. There's no bird song, no wind, just the occasional drip of melting ice from a branch. You find a fallen log and start hacking at it with the knife. It's a pathetic effort. The bark laughs at you. Eventually, you manage to pry off a few branches, twisted, damp, slightly moldy. Perfect. While you work, your mind drifts. You remember the summer, how green everything was, how the air smelled like soil and sun, and maybe a little goat. You remember the market days, bustling, noisy, full of colors that now feel like myths. Someone juggled turnips. Someone else sang about cheese. Now everything's gray and beige, even your thoughts. You shake your head, load your bundle, and start the trek back. On the way, you spot the boy from the well again. His lips are chapped, cheeks raw. He nods this time. You nod back. It feels like progress. Back home, the fire is reborn. The aunt has managed to coax real flames from the kindling. She's a witch, you decide, of the helpful bread-baking variety. You toss your branches on the pile. They steam dramatically, then crackle to life. The warmth spreads like gossip. Fingers stretch toward it. Toes shuffle closer. The minstrel is humming again. A low tune. You recognize it. It's the one from last night. The one about waiting. This time you hum along. Someone opens the door for a second, just long enough to let the cold glare in like a disapproving relative. It's enough to remind you how thin the walls are, how temporary the comfort is. The day drags. You mend a sock. Badly. You fix a chair. It now rocks aggressively. You try to help prepare something edible. You end up banned from the cooking corner. Lunch is a turnip stew that tastes like ambition and resignation. You eat it anyway. By afternoon, the children are restless. So the minstrel tells another story, this one about a knight who got lost on the way to a tournament and accidentally discovered indoor plumbing. You're not sure it's historically accurate, but it's definitely entertaining. Someone suggests charades. You learn 2 things: the aunt is terrifyingly good at miming beheading, and the goat is an uncooperative prop. You laugh. You forget your toes. Just for a moment. Historians still argue whether communal laughter played a measurable role in village resilience during harsh winters. Some suggest it lowered stress and improved survival rates. Others think it was merely a coping mechanism, functional, not foundational. But when you're in the middle of it, who cares? It's warm. It's human. It works. Evening sidles in slowly, like a cat pretending not to want attention. The chores wind down. The fire blazes brighter. You stare into it again, watching the wood glow and shrink. You think of all the things that had to happen for this exact moment to exist, the trees that grew and fell, the stories that were passed down, the bread, the tea, the snow, the song. It all adds up to this room, this warmth, this collection of people who didn't choose each other, but somehow fit like mismatched puzzle pieces. You lie back on the straw, listening. No one talks. No one needs to. Outside, the snow begins again, quiet and forgiving. Inside, you drift. You wake to whispers. Not urgent ones, more like the rustle of curiosity trying not to disturb the furniture. You stay still, pretending to sleep, which buys you a few more seconds of not having to be useful. But curiosity always wins, so you crack open one eye. A visitor. Not a dramatic one. No cloaks billowing or scrolls unfurling. Just a short, wiry man wrapped in teal wool, his boots caked in mud, his nose the color of old cherries. He stands near the hearth exchanging low words with your uncle. There's bread on the table, real bread. That means he brought news or gossip or maybe both. You stretch, trying to look like you've just now woken up, not been eavesdropping for 5 minutes. The visitor glances at you, gives a small nod, then continues talking. It's not until someone hands him a mug of something steaming that the story spills out. Bandits. Well, bandits might be generous. More like starving teenagers with sticks desperate enough to harass a chicken cart 2 villages away. Still, it's enough to rattle people. No one wants their breakfast ambushed. The minstrel perks up. Were there horses? He asks hopefully. No, the visitor mutters. Just muddy boots and bad decisions. You file that phrase away. Might come in handy. Historians still argue whether rural communities romanticized bandits or genuinely feared them. Some claim tales of outlaw nobility were exaggerations used to entertain during long winters. Others insist such figures served real economic functions, redistributing wealth one goat at a time. Either way, you hope they don't show up here. Your goat is not emotionally prepared. Once the visitor leaves, the house relaxes a notch. Your uncle starts sharpening something. Not for any real purpose, just for the principle of looking prepared. Breakfast becomes a bit more generous. A slice of root vegetable joins your usual bread chunk. Luxury. You eat slowly, letting it sit on your tongue like a secret. After that, it's chore time. Again, this time clearing the roof. You groan because your arms already hate you. You climb the ladder, which creaks like it's reconsidering its life choices. The roof is slick with frost, dotted with tiny suicidal icicles. You take the wooden scraper and begin gently coaxing the buildup away. Down below, your sibling watches you with the kind of awe usually reserved for saints or accidental explosions. Don't fall, they say. Helpful advice, you mutter back. The sky above is a blank canvas, neither threat nor promise, just winter being non-committal. As you work, you think about the thatch under your feet. It was laid in the summer. A communal effort, laughter, blisters. Someone fell through once. That memory warms you more than the sun ever could. When you finish, your fingers are stiff and your eyebrows are frosted. But the roof sighs in relief. You descend triumphant and frozen. Inside, the aunt has something brewing. It's either soup or revenge. Hard to tell until it hits your tongue. Turns out it's soup. Sort of. You slurp it anyway. The rest of the day blurs into quiet tasks, fixing a splintery bench, unknotting twine, trying to count how many socks are missing toes answer too many. At one point, someone pulls out a board game made from old tiles and sheep bones. The rules are unclear, but the cheating is universal. You lose to a 6-year-old who may or may not be a genius. Laughter comes easier today. So does breathing. Later, you sneak outside for a minute. Not far. Just to the edge of the path where the snow hasn't been trampled yet. You stand still, listening. Nothing. Not silence exactly. Silence implies emptiness. This is stillness, the kind that feels like the world holding its breath. You spot a bird overhead, a rare sight this time of year. It flaps once, twice, then vanishes into the white. Back inside, you report the sighting like it's an omen. The aunt nods solemnly. Might be a thaw coming, she says, though no one believes it. Still, you all pretend to believe. Pretending is its own kind of hope. You settle into the evening with less resistance than usual. The fire is strong. The roof is clear. The goat hasn't screamed in 3 hours. All things considered a good day. You lie back, muscles sore in new places. You watch the fire flicker, then dim your thoughts to match. One ember winks at you. You wink back. You awaken to the delicate aroma of something not entirely unpleasant. It's faint, like the memory of flavorwood smoke, maybe, and a whisper of something vaguely vegetable adjacent. The fire's still alive, barely. Someone's poked it recently, judging by the lazy sparks curling upward like yawned apologies. You pull your blanket tighter and turn your face towards the heat. Someone's already up, probably your aunt, judging by the way the pot on the hearth bubbles with quiet defiance. It's still dark, though slightly less so, which is winter's way of saying good morning without meaning it. You sit up, joints cracking like old floorboards, and glance around. Everyone else is still bundled, snoring and stirring in intervals like synchronized sacks of potatoes. You're tempted to lie back down, but something stirs in your memory today's market day. Or well market adjacent. Technically, it's barter patch behind a barn near the river, but branding is everything. You pull on your thickest tunic, the one with the elbow patch that smells like turnip, and wrap a scarf around your head so only your eyes peek through. You nod at your aunt, who nods back without speaking a sacred morning ritual older than bread. Then you trudge out. The path to the market is a stubborn mess. Snow slush, trampled hay, the occasional chicken print that implies free-range panic. But it's familiar, and your boots know the way better than you do. By the time you arrive, there's already a small cluster of bodies huddled together like a conspiracy. Someone's laid out root vegetables on a cloth. Another has woven baskets, slightly crooked but earnestly made. A third sells what might be wool, or might be moss. You don't ask. Your own trade item is humble, but solid kindling bundles tied with twine. Dry splintery, and the most valuable thing in town since socks. Historians still argue whether winter markets in rural Europe were more social than economic. Some suggest the value lay less in trade than in the brief, glorious reminder that other humans existed. Others insist it was a vital distribution mechanism for surplus goods, especially the lumpy ones no one wanted in summer. You lay out your goods and nod at your favorite barter partner, an older woman with wild hair and a squint you'd trust with your life. She sniffs your kindling grunts approvingly and offers half a stale cheese wheel in exchange. You accept. It's not a fair trade, but friendship's worth more than firewood. A small boy offers you a rock and claims it's magical. You trade him a single twig. You both walk away feeling like kings. Midway through, the morning snow begins to fall light and lazy like it's showing off. Someone begins to hum. Another claps in rhythm. It's not music exactly, but it is something close to celebration. You overhear gossip someone's goat gave birth. Someone else found a lost mitten from last year and called it a miracle. The usual miracle inflation. You don't stay long. You've made your trades and your fingers are protesting their exposure. You pack up your treasures, choose a new spoon, a strip of faded cloth, and begin the journey home. The way back feels shorter, though no easier. But now there's cheese in your pocket, and that changes everything. Back at home, the pot on the fire has entered its final stage, aggressively bland. You add a shaving of cheese to your bowl, and suddenly it's gourmet. Or at least edible. The aunt eyes you but says nothing. She can smell cheese miracles from across the room. The rest of the day drifts by in small chores, stitching socks, untangling the goat from itself, sweeping dust into new corners. Someone finds an old card game. You invent half the rules. No one argues because winning isn't the point. Evening creeps in again, clumsy and inevitable. You sit near the fire holding your new spoon like it's made of gold. Your sibling eyes it with envy. You let them hold it for a minute. They return it solemnly, as if it were a relic. Outside, the snow has settled into soft curves on the windowsill. The sky is an indeterminate gray-blue, and the wind has given up trying to be dramatic. Inside, laughter bubbles up from nowhere in particular. Someone makes a joke about the goat's new haircut. Someone else pretends to be offended. It's the kind of conversation that wouldn't matter in summer, but in winter, it's everything. You curl back onto your hay mattress, this time with a small smile. Tomorrow might be harder, colder, louder. But tonight your belly's full, your fingers are warm, and your pocket smells faintly of cheese. And honestly, that's enough. The next morning is not really morning. Not because time isn't moving, but because the sky refuses to participate. It stays a muted charcoal, neither night nor day, like someone smudged the concept of sunrise with the side of a dirty thumb. You wake up feeling like a wrung-out rag-sore groggy and absolutely not ready to be vertical. But vertical you must be. You roll out of the straw pile and immediately regret it. The floor is colder than betrayal. Your toes curl in protest as you hobble over to the fire pit, where a few embers glow like stubborn little rebels. You nudge them with the iron poker, coaxing a reluctant flame. It grumbles into life, and you try not to take it personally. Someone sneezes. The goat responds with a groan. The household is officially awake. Today's chore, mending the roof, which sounds heroic until you remember your roof is a thatch quilt held together by hope and the occasional miracle. Still it leaks and someone has to fix it. That someone tragically is you. You climb up using the ladder that no one trusts but everyone uses. Each rung creaks like it's narrating its own death. At the top, the wind slaps your face as if to say, "Really again." You assess the damage, frost-laced bundles of straw curling away from the rafters, a few places where sunlight slices through like a knife. You shove fresh thatch into the gaps, your fingers turning red and dumb with cold. A wooden bird carved and nailed there generations ago for luck watches you silently from the eaves. You nod at it. It does not nod back. Historians still argue whether medieval peasant homes were marvels of sustainable design or damp boxes of despair. Some point to the ingenious use of local materials and seasonal airflow. Others, more cynical, point to mold. You patch, you mutter, you slip once dramatically but catch yourself with a squeak. There's no applause, only a crow somewhere in the distance judging you loudly. Eventually, the work is done, well done enough. You descend the ladder with a sigh of someone who has not, against all odds, perished. Inside, someone has found a radish. Just one. It's sliced thin and floated in hot water like an aristocrat pretending to be soup. You sip it like it's fine wine. It's not. Then comes laundry, which in winter means breaking the ice in the wash bucket and praying your fingers don't mutiny. You scrub the family's clothes with lye soap that smells faintly of despair and wild onions, Your hands go numb. Then they burn. Then they go numb again. The cycle of life. You hang the garments near the fire, watching steam curl up like exhausted spirits. Everything will smell like smoke, but that's better than mildew. Or goat. Barely. Later you find yourself assigned to guard duty. No, not against bandits. Against chickens. One has figured out how to sneak into the pantry. You perch near the door armed with a broom and a dangerous lack of patience. When it struts in like it owns the place, you make eye contact. There's a standoff. You wave the broom. It tilts its head. You lunge. It flaps. You shout something heroic, possibly just a yawn, and it escapes in a flurry of feathers and indignant squawks. Victory is yours. Barely. Evening rolls in like fog. The sky continues its gray protest, and you wonder if the sun has taken winter off entirely. But at least you've earned your seat by the fire. The family gathers. Someone tells a story you've all heard before, something about a fox and a missing pie. You laugh anyway. Not because it's funny, but because the laugh is what matters. It's your contribution to the heat. You hold your hands to the flame's fingers, twitching as warmth creeps back in. You swear the fire knows you by name now. You whisper to it like an old friend. It crackles, probably in pity. Supper is thin again. A broth made from yesterday's bones, today's hope, and a mysterious green leaf no one identifies. But it's warm, and it fills just enough space inside you to remind your stomach it's not in charge. Afterward, you sit in silence, staring at your hands. They're cracked and red, but still here. Still useful. You flex them slowly like testing piano keys. Not that you've seen a piano, or know what one is. Your aunt hands you a scrap of cloth to mend her gloves. You take them and begin stitching the needle heavy in your clumsy fingers. It's quiet work, gentle work. Work that says, we're not just surviving, we're caring. The fire spits a spark. Outside, snow begins to fall again, tentative, like it's checking if you're ready. You nod to the window. You are. When it's time to sleep, you lie down with the kind of exhaustion that only roof-mending, chicken-wrangling, radish-eating peasants understand. You wrap yourself tight and close your eyes. And despite everything, despite the damp and the cold and the soup that wasn't your last thought before sleep is simple, you're getting good at this. It's barely morning when the banging starts. Not the soft knock of someone needing help. No. This is the unmistakable thud of an emergency, or worse, a neighbor with opinions. You throw off your blanket, mumble a word that isn't quite a curse, but definitely isn't polite, and stumble to the door. It's old Lise, 60 if she's a day, wrapped in teal shawls, carrying what appears to be a distressed duck and muttering something about the omen. You don't ask, you never ask, you just make room. She stomps in, leaving a trail of snow and vague chaos. The duck flaps once and then gives up on everything. Honestly, relatable. Apparently someone in the village has fallen ill, which is both common and cause for alarm because no one's entirely sure whether it's sick or we need the herbalist sick. The distinction matters. You're dispatched, still yawning and half-dressed, to fetch Marl the midwife. She knows things. Plants, potions, people. She's the closest thing your village has to a Wikipedia. The walk is crunchy and unpleasant. The snow that fell overnight is deceptively deep, and your boots are more whole than leather. You trudge, grumble, and eventually arrive at Marl's cottage, which smells comfortingly like damp sage and unwashed cat. Marl's awake because of course she is. She was probably never asleep. She listens, nods, mutters about mushrooms, and shoves several items into a satchel with a speed that suggests she's done this too often. You escort her back, slightly out of breath, trying to walk quickly, without looking like you're walking quickly. It's a pride thing. Back home, the patient is lying near the fire. She's pale, sweaty, and murmuring something about blueberries. Marl gets to work shooing everyone back with a spoon like it's a sword. You watch from the side, holding the duck for moral support. Historians still argue whether community healers were respected medical figures or tolerated eccentrics. Some records suggest their remedies saved lives. Others document them being chased with torches. Usually both were true, depending on the outcome. Eventually, Marl announces it's not fatal, just unfortunate. She prescribes rest fluids and a paste that smells like boiled moss and sadness. With the crisis managed, you finally sit. The duck thanks you by pooping near your foot. Love comes in many forms. Later, the village gathers at the central hall, a term that generously describes a barn with fewer animals. It's time for updates, which usually means complaints about snow, rumors about wolves, someone suggesting a festival for morale. You sit near the back next to the barrel of pickles. The scent is aggressive. The discussion is livelier than expected. Apparently, someone saw tracks, large ones, near the edge of the woods. Cue panic. Some say bear, others say wild boar. Wild. One insists it's a troll. That one's been hit on the head too many times. Eventually, a vote has taken more torches, more noise, and no one goes out alone. Sensible. Almost too sensible for your lot. On your way home, someone slips you a roasted chestnut. It's warm and sweet and tastes like luxury. You don't ask why. You just nod, say thank you, and move on. Dinner that night is communal again. Everyone's a bit shaken, but trying not to show it. There's stew, thin as usual, but it has flavor. You suspect Marley added something. Possibly gratitude, or maybe just salt. Your family eats slowly, quietly. You catch your reflection in the pot lid, wind-chapped cheeks, smudged nose eyes, older than they should be. But there's something else there, too. Resilience. That word they like to write in books, but rarely explain. You understand it now. It's in the way you hold your spoon, the way you sit a little straighter, the way your shoulders don't sag as much as they used to. You helped today. You mattered. Someone starts humming again. A different tune. Less folk song, more lullaby. Your sibling leans against you. You don't move away. The fire crackles. The wind howls outside, then thinks better of it. Inside, the warmth is real. You lie down that night with a belly that isn't full but isn't empty either. With hands that hurt, but in a good way. With a mind that's too tired to worry. You hear someone whisper, "We'll be okay." You believe them. Morning arrives not with light, but with noise. Specifically, the sound of pots crashing and a goat arguing with the broom again. You blink awake to the chaos, which is somehow comforting now, like the house reminding you it's still standing, still bustling, still surviving. Your back aches. So does your neck. But your dreams weren't bad last night, which is something. You roll over, pull on your cloak, it's still damp in the hem, and shuffle toward the hearth. The fire is nearly out. Naturally, you prod it with a stick like it owes you money. A few stubborn embers glow back. You sigh, toss in some straw, and try not to curse loudly in case the walls are listening. Breakfast, if it can be called, that is a heel of bread, and something spreadable of questionable origin. You eat it anyway. Hunger erases pride faster than winter erases paths. The village is quieter today. Suspiciously so. You step outside, greeted by an icy wind that slaps your face like an insult from an old friend. The sky is gray with purpose, that heavy woolen look that promises snow soon, and not the romantic kind, the kind that shuts doors and steals boots. Near the bakehouse you see a group gathered, not gossiping exactly, more like wondering aloud in unison. A calf's gone missing. That's the talk. Gone poof, vanished. Some suspect wolves. Others suspect teenagers. You suspect the calf just got tired of everything and walked off. Still it matters. Livestock isn't just food. It's currency. Status. Hope wrapped in fur and occasional panic. You volunteer to join the search party not because you're noble, but because you'd rather walk than scrub chamber pots today. Into the woods you go. It's colder than yesterday. The snow crunches like stale crackers beneath your boots. You walk with two others, one humming tunelessly, the other quietly chewing something that smells herbal and illegal. You find tracks. Not deep, but clear. Hooves, possibly. You follow. It's eerily still out here. No birds, no rustling, just the occasional creak of trees that might be talking about you behind your back. The tracks lead to a thicket. Inside you find the calf. Just sitting there, looking mildly annoyed but otherwise unscathed. You name him Trevor. No one objects. Trevor is uncooperative on the walk back. He thinks he lives in the woods now. It's a whole thing. Eventually, between the three of you, and with only one minor incident involving a frozen puddle and bruised pride, you get him home. Villagers cheer. A child throws a handful of hay in celebration. You accept it like confetti. Someone makes soup in honor of the rescue. It's mostly turnips and mystery, but it's warm and shared. You dip bread into it and try not to think about how many hands touched the pot. Historians still argue whether these communal meals were acts of necessity or acts of social cohesion. The food may have been scarce, but the rituals, the gathering, the sharing, the quiet nods were abundant. Later you sit by the door watching the snow begin to fall in slow, lazy flakes. You remember something your grandfather once said: snow is nature's apology for cold. You didn't understand it then. You might now. Someone offers you a carved trinket, a goat made of wood, badly shaped but charming. It's a thank you gift. You accept it like it's a crown. Night arrives in a hush. You're tired again, of course, but it's a different tired. Earned. Warm. The kind of tired that feels like you've done something. Helped someone. Found a missing animal and restored some small balance in the world. Trevor bleats from the pen. Loudly. Righteously. You smile. Inside the hearth glows brighter tonight. Someone figured out the fire trick before you had to. That's teamwork. You settle into your straw bed cloak, wrapped tight eyes already heavy. Tomorrow you think, we'll do it all again. And somehow that's okay. You wake up not to noise but to silence. And that, ironically, is more alarming. No goat arguments, no broom clashes, no shuffling feet or muttered complaints. Just the muffled stillness of a world wrapped in snow. You sit up slowly, heart thumping, with that peculiar sense of disorientation. Did the apocalypse arrive and forget to send an invitation? You crawl to the window slit, rub the frost away with your sleeve, and squint. Ah, there it is. Snow. Not a gentle dusting. A full theatrical curtain call level snowstorm. The world outside is gone, replaced by soft white hills and roofs with marshmallow hats. Even the sky seems unsure of where the horizon ends. It's beautiful and terrible. Because snow this deep means chores this hard. Someone's already out there digging. You recognize the saffron scarf and defeated posture. It's your aunt. You pull on your boots, which feel like frozen bricks, and head out to join her. The snow is waist-high in places. Each step is a lunge. Each breath stings your throat. But you shovel side by side using a crooked wooden spade that wobbles like it wants to retire. Nice weather, you mutter. She snorts, a bonding moment in its own sarcastic way. You're tasked with clearing the path to the latrine. Because of course you are. The snow here is especially cruel, having drifted into peaks that challenge both balance and dignity. Still, you manage, eventually. Back inside the warm-up ritual begins socks off feet, near the hearth mug of hot something. You don't ask what. It smells like boiled root and old optimism. Someone starts knitting. Someone else mends a cloak. The room hums with the quiet productivity of a snowed-in day. It's not boredom, it's survival theater. You pick up a cracked lute and strum a few notes. It's wildly out of tune, but no one protests. Probably because your playing is drowned out by the sound of stew bubbling in the corner pot. You offer to stir, not because you're helpful, but because standing near the pot is the warmest spot in the room. The stew is hearty today. Root vegetables. Maybe a bone or two if luck's on your side. The smell is enough to make your stomach remember it exists. As the day drifts on, so does conversation. Stories emerge about a winter 10 years ago when the snow reached the roof, or the time someone tried to ice skate on the duck pond and invented a new form of injury. Historians still argue whether these oral traditions served merely as entertainment or as vital cultural memory banks. Either way, they stick. Sometimes more than facts. You're asked to share something. You panic slightly. Your life isn't exactly riveting. But then you remember the calf rescue. Trevor. You embellish just a little. Suddenly there were wolves, probably dragons, definitely pirates. Laughter ripples through the room. That warm, weary laughter of people who've been cold too long and just need a reason to smile. Even the goat seems amused. Outside, the snow keeps falling. The stew is ladled into bowls wooden mismatched but precious. You eat slowly, savoring every bite like it might be your last. Not out of pessimism, but appreciation. After the meal, someone suggests a game. You all take turns making up proverbs. Most are terrible. He who milks the goat last drinks it warmest is met with groans and applause. Evening falls gently like the snow outside. The hearth glows, the shadows stretch, and for once there's nothing urgent left to do. You lie back, the straw prickling your spine in familiar places. The blanket you share smells of smoke and soup and home. Will it ever stop snowing? Someone asks. You don't answer, because maybe it doesn't need to. You're warm, you're full, you're not alone. And outside, the snow writes its own quiet poetry on every surface. You wake up to a sharp whistle, not human, not mechanical. It's the kettle perched at a tilt over the embers, letting out its polite little warning that something in this house still functions reliably. It's almost sweet. Almost. You stretch under the blanket joints cracking like old rafters. Someone's already beaten you to the fire. It's your cousin, the one with the eternal bedhead and an unspoken vendetta against socks. He's cradling the kettle like a goblet of molten treasure steam curling into his eyebrows. You nod. He nods. Words are too ambitious for this hour. The tea, if you can call it that, tastes like pine needles and regret. But it's warm. And it counts. Outside, the sky is the soft gray of old wool. It isn't snowing, not yet. But it's thinking about it. You can feel the deliberation in the air. Breakfast is last night's stew warmed into a new personality. This time someone's added wild garlic, or possibly just a generous accident of soapwort. Either way, it clears your sinuses. Today's task, ash hauling. Because what goes into the fire must eventually be swept out. You wrap your scarf thrice, clutch the iron ash bucket patched twice with bent nails, and a suspicious optimism and head outside. The cold isn't rude this morning. It's calculating. It waits for you to relax your shoulders, then darts into your sleeves like an ambush. Still, you persist, dragging the heavy ash load past the slumped snowdrifts. The designated ash dump is a black scar against the white world. Steam rises as you empty the bucket. The snow sizzles briefly offended. Somewhere nearby, a crow caws like it's mocking your technique. You flip it off in your mind. You're too cold for diplomacy. Back inside the room smells like singed wool and faint ambition. Someone's trying to fix the roof again. With string and faith, you help patch a drafty corner with an old tunic. The wind respects it for about 5 minutes, then presses its icy palm flat against the wall like a bored ghost. You sigh and go back to the hearth. The goat sneezes. You offer a respectful nod. Later, someone brings out the needlework, a massive communal tapestry that's more patch than pattern. Every square tells a story: the flood of '91, the great pickle spill, the time the owl got in. You trace your favorite, a crooked sheep, with an expression of existential dread. You stitched that one. It's family. Historians still debate whether medieval peasant families truly used collective crafting as storytelling, or if modern nostalgia is just projecting comfort into hardship. Either way, this patchwork feels like an heirloom of survival. You thread a needle and begin a new square. You're no artist, but you capture the kettle whistle with 2 uneven lines and a puff of steam. Not bad. A debate breaks out over how many layers of socks constitute luxury. The winner declares 5. The loser admits he's barefoot again. Everyone groans. Someone throws a stale biscuit. It misses gloriously. By afternoon, the weather has settled into that soft, threatening stillness, the calm that usually means get the animals inside now. So you do. Herding the goat is easy. Herding your uncle harder. He insists he can hear thunder. You insist it's just your stomach. Compromise, both of you get inside. Dinner is mush and something pickled. The flavors are decisive. But the mood is light. Even the fire seems to crackle more generously. You lean back, bowl empty, thoughts drifting. The kettle sings again, quieter this time. Like it knows you've had enough surprises for one day. Someone unrolls a game board scratched onto a plank of wood. It's missing pieces, but imagination fills in. A thimble becomes a knight. A dry bean, a dragon. You lose spectacularly. And laugh about it. Night stretches its arms across the ceiling beams. You lie down, blanket up to your nose, fingers tired from sewing and shoveling and losing with style. The straw pokes but doesn't offend. The air smells like soot and pickles and kinship. You close your eyes, letting the silence settle in layers. One for the tea, one for the kettle's whistle, one for the goat's sneeze, one for the bean dragon, and one for the simple fact that today, again, you made it. The next morning arrives not with a sunrise, but with the distinct sensation of something cold and wet tapping your nose. You open one eye. Snow. Not outside, inside. Turns out a tuft of snow crept through a crack in the thatch overnight and politely landed on your face like a frosty slap. You blink, then groan. This is not how champions wake up. This is how moldy boots wake up. You sit up, hair full of melting roof. The fire's long gone to ash. Everyone else still slumbers, bundled in hay and hope. You, of course, are the chosen one. Again. Fire duty. You shuffle to the hearth like a medieval zombie. Your feet protest every step. Your knees narrate each movement like grumpy town criers. Still you kneel, stack some kindling, and blow gently. The embers blink, then breathe. There. Life again. The room responds slowly. A creak here, a fart there. You are not alone. Someone throws a sock at you. You assume it's a thank you. Breakfast is non-existent today. Apparently, the stew has staged a rebellion and become part of the floor. You chew a corner of dry bread, softer than the floor, but with less personality. Outside, the world is unrecognizable. Overnight snow has erased it. Everything looks frosted, paused like a scene waiting for actors. Even the trees seem quieter, like they've forgotten their lines. You're assigned to path clearing. Of course, with a shovel older than sin and half as useful, you carve a trail from the door to the well. It's more like drawing lines in whipped cream. You slip twice, curse once under your breath, respect the children, and eventually the path resembles a sad snake in the snow. You return victorious, wet, cold, but upright. Someone rewards you with a boiled root. You eat it with ceremony. No one claps. But the goat looks impressed. Later, the house shifts into repair mode. A roof tile needs replacing. You and your cousin take turns pretending not to be afraid of heights. He climbs. You pray. It's teamwork. Meanwhile, someone has discovered a leak in the corner. A strategic placement of rags and sarcasm fixes it. Temporarily. As the day trudges on, talk turns to stories. Not bedtime tales, those are for children. These are remember when tales passed around like old coins. Remember when the ox got stuck in the privy. Remember when grandmother snored so loud the magistrate thought it was thunder. Remember when someone mistook salt for flour and ruined the festival bread. You laugh. Not because they're new, but because they're yours. Historians still argue whether oral storytelling in peasant households served as education or just entertainment. Perhaps both. Either way, it's cheaper than books and warmer than silence. As evening settles in, you notice your uncle carving something near the fire. Not out of necessity, but pleasure. A small wooden bird. He's terrible at it. It looks like a haunted turnip. But everyone compliments it. That's the rule. Supper is root mash with a mystery herb. The mystery is, why does it taste like mint and regret? You eat it anyway. The wind howls outside, but tonight it feels less like a threat and more like a neighbor sweeping their porch too loudly. You sit by the hearth, watching the flames gossip. Your cousin tries to braid straw into something decorative. It turns into something vaguely dangerous instead. You all agree not to touch it. The snow continues to fall, steady, silent, sacred. Eventually, everyone settles. Someone hums a familiar tune. You join in this time, off-key of course, but in good company. The blanket wraps around you like a forgiving sentence. The straw bed doesn't itch quite as much. Your eyes grow heavy. Before sleep, someone whispers, "Do you think spring will come early?" No one answers. Not because they don't care, but because dreams are forming and questions like that bloom better in silence. You drift. Not because you're tired, though you are, not because it's warm, though it is, but because today was hard and full and human and somehow beautifully survivable. Hey guys, tonight we return to the hush of a frozen village as winter leans into its final stretch. Outside, the snow may fall with polite determination, but inside you're already curled up, listening. Imagine firelight dancing across beams of old timber, the creak of straw beneath you, the smell of smoke-soaked wool and roasted root vegetables hanging in the air like quiet memories. It's the kind of evening where even the wind tiptoes past your door. Of course, none of this means you're safe. The goat might still chew your blanket, the fire might throw a spark into someone's boot, and if one more person suggests we all cuddle for warmth, you might hurl a turnip. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Leave a comment with your location and the time you're listening. Are you falling asleep in Minnesota or walking your dog in Melbourne? Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Today feels different. Not warmer, not brighter, but softer somehow. The kind of day where time doesn't push so hard. The morning starts with silence. No goat complaints, no sibling arguments, just breath and the slow creak of limbs remembering how to move. You rise slowly, joints clicking like medieval castanets. The hearth is low but alive. Someone already fed it. You're both impressed and suspicious. Outside, the sky is pewter. Not gray pewter, like a tarnished goblet full of cold tea. Snow still coats the village, but in patches now. Grass peeks through like shy secrets. Somewhere a bird chirps. It sounds unsure. Inside a small miracle, someone found a few dried berries. They're shared like gold coins. You pop one in your mouth and it tastes like sun that forgot how to shine. Breakfast is mostly storytelling again. Only now the stories are a bit louder, a bit sillier. Someone mimes the goat slipping on ice. You laugh harder than you should. It's not the story, it's the act of laughing that feels rich. By midday, you're sweeping the floor. Not because it needs it, but because you want to. It's strange. Maybe spring is sneaking in not with blooms, but with purpose. Your aunt starts singing while hanging up socks. It's a song no one remembers the origin of, just that you've always known it. You hum along. Off-key, gloriously so. Later, you and your cousin haul wood, not a chore, an adventure. You pretend the logs are royal treasures. He pretends to be a knight. The shovel becomes a dragon. The snow becomes a moat. You are both idiots, joyful idiots. You trip, of course, fall straight into a snowdrift. He declares you dead, a fallen hero. You demand a song in your honor. He delivers an impromptu ballad that rhymes hero with turnip, and somehow it works. Historians still argue whether play in medieval peasant life was tolerated or treasured. Some say idle games were punished. Others suggest they were essential escapes from unrelenting hardship. Today, it's a rebellion against cold, against boredom, against silence. By evening, a proper meal appears. Thin stew, but hot and shared. Someone drops in a sprig of something green and declares it a feast. No one argues. The goat joins you near the fire. Her head rests on someone's knee. No chewing, just warmth. Even beasts know when it's time to rest. You lean against the wall, arms, folded toes, warm. The fire flickers like it's breathing with you. Shadows dance lazily across the ceiling. A game of who can remember. The worst blizzard starts. Grandmother wins by default. She always does. She describes a storm so fierce it knocked over a chicken coop and turned eggs into marbles. You don't question it. Someone dozes off mid-sentence. The rest of you smile. Outside, the wind has forgotten how to howl. It hums instead. A lullaby for houses. Your sister curls up beside you. She whispers, "I think the snow's going to stop soon." You nod. Not because you're sure, but because hope deserves backup. You close your eyes. And in that quiet, the kind that only comes after shared struggle and shared stew, you know, you made it. Another night, another chapter, another story you'll tell next winter. And now as your breathing slows and the fire inside your mind dims to soft ember glow, let the final hush of the village settle around you. Outside snow may drift or melt, or simply wait for dawn, but none of that matters here. Here in this small cocoon of wool blankets and shared stories, you're safe. You've done enough. You've been brave enough, strong enough, kind enough. Feel the weight of your limbs sinking deeper into the mattress straw, gently rustling beneath you, like whispers of old lullabies. The air smells of smoke and sleep, a gentle reminder that you are exactly where you need to be. Let the rhythm of your heart beat slow. Let your thoughts turn soft and round. No edges tonight, no worries worth their weight. Just the echo of laughter, the warmth of shared bread, the quiet pride of one more day endured with grace and good humor. If your mind drifts good, let it. Follow the flicker of imaginary flames, the sound of ghostly folk songs in the rafters. Let them carry you gently without asking questions, without needing conclusions. In this stillness, in this story, you are more than a survivor. You are part of a quiet, ancient magic, the kind passed down not through kings and conquerors, but through whispers at the hearth, steam from stew pots and silly songs sung badly on cold afternoons. So rest now, and when you wake, let it be with the same warmth that carried you through this night. Good night, friend. Sweet dreams.